If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Michael Stack back on the show, coming off another impressive performance. There were a lot of memorable finishes at LFA 79 a couple weeks ago. Michael had one of them, a first-round rear naked choke submission over Brian Mitchell. Now he is 4-0 as a pro, 2-0 as a featherweight. Michael, good to see you, man. Congratulations. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's great to be on here again. Feeling good. Feeling pretty good.
I bet. First fight with LFA, you were close to home. How did it all feel to get a win like that in your first fight with the organization? I know there's more to the story, which we're going to get into in a moment, but just getting the win itself in that arena, first fight at the LFA, what did that all feel like?
It felt great. It felt like, I made the next step towards furthering my career, and I could actually feel the momentum picking up. You know what I mean? It just felt like I was right on the right track. So it feels good.
The last time we spoke, since we sort of set it up, you had told me in that conversation that you had some things that were going on that were leading into this fight that you weren't really ready to talk about, and you said maybe you'll talk to me about it after the fight. So to sort of pull back the curtain for those watching right now, Joel Torres from your management team reached out to me and said you wanted to talk about it and you wanted to do it with me, which I appreciate. So with that being said, what has been going on? What has been happening leading into this fight? Maybe even prior fights. The floor is yours. What do you want to say?
Well, first, I want to say that I wanted to talk about this just because of the crazy circumstances that kind of are wrapped around the whole thing. And, for me, it's something special, and it just shows me that I got someone looking up over me from above. But so for the original fight, October 4th, that fight camp, like right when it started, I think August 20th, I actually broke my fibula in training camp. So I remember getting kicked in the calf, and I at the time I couldn't tell like what happened, but I know I felt like a snap, and I kind of took that rest of that practice off because I could barely walk on my leg, and go through it the next day, and I was like, man, I must have really sprained something in my leg because I can't even walk on this thing. But it wasn't like super swollen or anything, so I personally didn't think it was broken, but that is when I broke my fibula. And so I'm going through that whole fight camp for about 2 weeks. I can barely walk, but I started doing like exercises outside, air squats, pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and things like that. Still trying to stay in shape. I couldn't even swim. The motion of swimming was messing up my, like it would hurt real bad. So there wasn't a whole lot I could do, and it was wild. But through all that pain and everything, I was still like, I'm definitely fighting. Like I know that I'm supposed to fight for this promotion. I know I'm supposed to fight this kid. So I just kept doing it, and me and my coaches, we discussed it, and we said, no matter what, like we're going to fight, even if this thing's not even 100%. So when it finally comes about 2 weeks out, my legs starting to feel a lot better, but not 100% better. It's about 50, 60% better. And we're like, all right, we're just going to have to go in there 60%. And we were going to do it. And that's when LFA calls and they say, hey, the whole show is canceled and we're going to have to move the whole show. To me, that was just like, I was shocked, first of all, that LFA, because LFA doesn't do that. Other promotions barely do that. LFA, they don't do that ever. You know what I mean? They're very professional. They're very, just the way they do things, that they always are on schedule. They have everything organized, everything done. I mean, have you've been in the game a long time. How often do you hear LFA move an entire show?
It's rare. I understood why. because of
Right.
the TV deal. Like once the Access TV thing started popping up, I was like, oh, I think something's going to happen because LFA is so big. I mean, obviously from a regional perspective, they're huge and they put on great fights, but they want to be on television. I mean, that's kind of their gold standard. So until they sort of figured that out, it didn't really surprise me that they moved some events and cancel them. I mean, look at the UFC. Look, 3 out of the last 4 years, they had to cancel pay-per-views in January because they couldn't get anybody to headline them. They'd start filling the cards, and then they would just cancel the card altogether and move the fights to other cards. So it's not something like completely out of the ordinary, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
But it doesn't happen often, right? So I was just like, wow, okay, so this gives me time to heal up and figure out what's going on with my leg. And so I ended up going to New York and taking a little bit of time off. I remember telling you about that, I think. And then when we found out that the date had been moved to November 22nd, it was time to get right back to training. And now it had been about 9 weeks when I started training again, and it started to feel a lot better. And then I got kicked right in the leg again, and it felt like it took me all the way back to when I first injured it. So this time I'm like, all right, there's something seriously up here. I thought like I had torn a muscle or something. I didn't really know because I could barely walk, could barely get on my toes. So I go to the doctor and I get an x-ray, and the x-ray shows that it's like definitely broken. You can see where the fibula is. It's like snapped like that. And I'm thinking to myself, this really sucks. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fight. I want to fight, and this diet is starting to like really take its toll on me because I've been dieting from the first camp, now for the second camp, and I'm thinking, is it even worth to keep dieting? Is it worth doing all this stuff? But something inside me just told me, you're going to fight. Keep on with it. Even though I didn't really feel like I didn't really know what I should do. So I'm like, all right, I have to get a orthopedist. I got to go to an orthopedist, and everyone's pretty much telling me you don't need to fight this fight because you're undefeated. It's not worth putting your record on the line. There's really no incentive to do it. But I started thinking about it, and I felt that if I didn't fight, I wasn't going to be able to get on with the LFA anytime soon. I'd have to wait for them to come back to Colorado. And I just felt, with the UFC Fight Pass, LFA being on UFC Fight Pass, I knew for some reason that I was going to make it on UFC Fight Pass, which I wasn't supposed to be because I was technically a prelim, and we talked about that.
Yeah.
But I ended up making it on the UFC Fight Pass because there were so many finishes, like you were talking about, which is just in itself just shows, in my opinion, that everything worked out the way it was supposed to. But everyone's telling me, don't take this fight. You don't really need it. It's not important right now. It's not worth putting a loss on your record. And so that night I went home and I literally was in prayer, and I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I need you to specifically tell me, because I don't want to do this because I want to force it. I want to do it your way. I want you to specifically tell me if I should take this fight. So I go to the orthopedist, and he looks at my x-rays, and he goes, oh yeah, you're fine. You're fine to fight. And it looks snapped. And he goes, yeah, in fact, there's actually a lot of healing here. And he looks at my bone, and to me, it looks snapped. I could show you some pictures of it. I'm sure it wouldn't show up on the camera very well. But he goes, yeah, there's a lot of healing on there. And apparently, so like x-rays don't show like new bone as well as old bone. I'm not a radiologist, so I don't know the whole, the lingo and the logistics behind it. But he tells me that there's so much healing there that it's not going to be any more damaging to go in. Like, it's not going to snap any more than my other one will. When I heard that, it was clear as day. I was like, all right, so I guess we can fight. And the funny thing is, at that point, it still did hurt. And he said it's because I had a hematoma around my muscles and stuff because of the bone damage and everything like that. So there was still a lot of pain there. But when that was about a week out, by the time that the fight came, it felt like it was brand new, like ready to go. In fact, the first thing he did was kick it in the fight. That was the first thing he did, and he kicked it 2 more times in the fight, and it didn't bother me at all. If I had not fought and I had felt that way, I'd have been kicking myself. I'd have been so upset that I didn't fight because it was almost back to normal, and it was just an insane experience because I was training an entire first fight camp with a broken fibula. And then the second fight camp, I was training with it still damaged with the hematoma and stuff. And a lot of adversity came at me that entire fight camp. But to me, that just shows this is what was supposed to happen, and that all these obstacles are trying to keep you from what is supposed to go on. You know what I mean? Like, the adversity is good because it means that you're on the right path. And just the fact, the way everything worked out, being on UFC Fight Pass, getting my fight actually got showed right before the main event did because of on the Fight Pass, not live, but on the Fight Pass, it got showed right before the main event. All those things just worked out, and it just worked out in my favor, and it was pretty awesome, man. So I just wanted to share it with you.
Wow. That's crazy, man. Have you, since the fight was over, have you gone back to the doctors to get it checked out? And if so, what does it look like now?
I haven't gone back to the doctor because after he told me that it was good to go, I just assumed that it's good to go. What he told me at the time is that it's going to start because of all the healing. It kind of looks like a ball around my where the break is. He said after time it's going to smooth out. In about a year it'll smooth out. So right now it's just, I imagine it's just a big rock of bone. Just what it looked like on what he was explaining to me through the X-ray.
Maybe it's like the parent in me that's going in this direction. And plus I'm almost 12 years older than you. So I've experienced a lot in this crazy thing called life. And although I'm not a fighter, I feel as the elder statesman here, I feel this question needs to be asked. I know you talked about the spiritual aspect of this, and I know you're a fighter, and I know that you have all these goals you want to accomplish. You don't want to just get to the UFC, you want to be a world champion. I totally get that. Mm-hmm. Why would you risk this? Like, it's the fight game. I know there's a small window to make things happen, but you're 25 years old. The grass is sort of nice and green right now. You're years away statistically from your physical prime. Like, why? Like, I understand the aspects of it, but why risk it on that fight now? You know what I mean?
Right. And that was the main question that I asked. I prayed and I asked the Lord, and I told him, I want to do it your way. I don't want to just jump into this because I think it's going to get me to my goals fast. I don't want to be greedy with it. You know what I mean? I want to do it your way. And so I asked him, just guide me in this and show me the right way. In my heart, I kind of had a feeling like this is the right way that things are going in the right direction, but everything else was telling me it wasn't. Everything else was kind of showing me, no, this kind of is stacking up against me. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I don't think that to God, fighting is all important, right? But I think that sports and fighting kind of inspired people, and really I think the reason it all played out like this was to just show that you can trust in the Lord and He'll make things work out for you. And the first song that popped up on the radio when I was coming home from the orthopedist was "Walk by Faith," and it said, one of the verses in it that actually kind of made me tear up and cry a little bit was that He guides our steps, and He makes things work out for our favor. And the fact that I believe that He told me that that He's going to allow me to accomplish my dreams in this and be successful at it, I think that He can do that for everybody. I think anyone that puts their trust in the Lord can also have this and this type of relationship. And I think that's kind of why everything worked out the way it did. It's just because, God's good, man. And it's not like fighting's all that special. I don't, but it's just, He knows that I like it. So he's doing it for me. That's why.
How are the people around you reacting to all of this? Like, I know your team was going to do whatever they could do to get you to the fight. Like, and that's what you guys had decided on. But I know you're very close to your family, you're very close to your girlfriend. You've been with her for a while. She's very understanding of what the fight game brings. Obviously, being with a fighter. How did she react to all of this? What were the people around you outside of your team telling you to do?
Well, so my coach, my head coach, was on a week-long hunting trip when I first got the X-ray. So when I first got the X-ray and knew that it was broken, he was gone. I didn't hear anything from him. He was like, he was MIA. And my other coach, Jared, was kind of telling me the same thing. He's like, I don't know if it's worth it. It's broken. Is it worth fighting and potentially losing? And so all these people were kind of doubting it a little bit, but then again, they've seen that all the other things that happened leading up to it. The fight actually getting moved and postponed to November 22nd, postponed to where my leg literally that day felt back to normal. You know what I mean? It was like right on time. So to them, they kind of just trusted that if I just listen, I'll make the right decision. My best friend, Logan Clark, he's telling me, dude, it's broken. It seems kind of ridiculous to you even to fight. But now that it all happened, like we kind of see, and I guess in hindsight, it's like, well, it all worked out, right? So it seems all right. It just, I can't really describe how it is because there's a lot of ups and downs and there's a lot of doubt and then belief and then a lot of like positivity and some negativity to it. You know what I mean? It's like anything else. You have your doubts and you have your highs and your lows, but I don't know. It was pretty wild. I told Joel about it. You mentioned Joel and all he said was, "You're crazy,"
How grumpy were you heading into this fight? I mean, between the weight cut, the long weight cut, the dieting, like you were getting into the dieting, but I know that wasn't an easy weight cut for you. Like you found ways to make it easier because you found the right people around you. But still, between the injury, the weight cut, were you really difficult to be around heading into this fight?
I'm sure I was grumpy. I'm sure I was pretty grumpy. My girlfriend's the one that probably has to bear that one the most. And I think most of the grumpiness comes from the lack of eating what I want. You know what I mean? Because you got to get your comfort food in, especially when you're in pain and stuff like that. You got to get some comfort food. And when you can't get that comfort food in and you don't even know if you're going to fight and you're just kind of torturing yourself, that's a little bit of a mind, like it messes with the mind a little bit. I mean, there was times I was like, man, I could just eat all this food and just forget this fight and heal up. But something inside of me was like, no, you can't. And that really messed my head a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I didn't even know. I was going to wait to see what the doctor said. And so when the doctor said it was time to go, I was kind of happy that week of not knowing I stuck to my guns. You know what I mean? And even during that week, I was still limping and I was still not walking correctly. So the fact that I was able to take a kick on the thing, I mean, when I took the kick in practice after I came back after 9 weeks, it put me on my ass. I mean, I had to sit down, couldn't even walk again. Like, it hurt, But I'm sure I was grumpy a little bit.
For a lot of fighters, like it takes years to find that turning point in their career, like that one moment where like everything really comes together. And you've been very successful thus far in your young career, so things are moving in the right direction. But having an experience like this and going through what you went through, and then still getting a win after that spot was attacked in the fight, I mean, you must feel like I'm not going to say invincible right now. I think that's probably not the correct word to use, but you must feel like this is a big turning point in your young career. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah, man. I feel like David in versus Goliath, man. I felt like all the circumstances were kind of stacked against me, and I still came out with the win on, and at the end of the day, the win it's important for furthering my career, but I'm just blessed to be able to do this and, do what I love and not have to work a 9 to 5 and do something I hate. You know what I mean? I used to paint with my uncle, and that was a good time, but man, I did not like it. Was boring. It was mentally exhausting. I'd rather be physically exhausted than mentally exhausted. You know what I'm saying? But no, I feel good. I feel like everything's in the right spot. I used to actually, I used to always think about this all the time. You see these guys in the UFC fighting with broken bones and like torn meniscus, and like, who's the guy that just fought John Jones and he tore his whole knee apart?
Thiago Santos.
Yeah. Like, I think about those guys. I'm like, that is respectable. That is admirable. I always wanted to, I never knew if I had the heart to fight through something like that. And I never wanted the opportunity to test it, but I always wanted to be able to know that I could do that. And I feel like I know now that if something like that came and I had to fight with an injury like that, I think I can do it.
With all that being said, I know that you're obviously feeling a lot better. You feel like it's almost back to normal. I heard you've been snowboarding as of late, so things are moving in the right direction in terms of getting that healthy. What is next for you, you crazy person? Like, when would you like to get back in there and keep this train going with the pooch?
Um, they wanted me. LFA told me after that fight, this is what they said. They said, we'll probably get you 2 more fights and then maybe a contender fight. So they're looking at moving me right away. They said, since I'm healthy, this is what he goes, since you're healthy, we want to keep you healthy and keep you fighting and active. Funny because they don't know what all happened, but I was like, yeah, let's get as many fights as we can. So I think they're going to talk to my coaches here pretty soon and see what's next on the agenda. But yeah, I think that they want to move me pretty quickly and get me some fights. So hopefully I can be on that Contender Series, get that fight going faster, and get into the UFC as quickly as I can. I don't really know the whole details. I'll let it all kind of plan out and lay out the way it should, or let it organically, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think you should do anything else. I think everything you do from now on should be organically after what just happened here. So, I mean, my gosh, crazy story, and I appreciate you sharing it with me. But I want to end with a little bit of a different direction, because we've talked a few times now. I know you are not only a fighter, but you're a giant student of the game as well. You sort of have your finger on the pulse in this crazy sport. You want to be in the UFC. You want to be a champion. You're looking at these guys already. You're looking at these guys. So next Saturday, UFC 245, Max Holloway is going to fight Alex Volkanovski. And Max, I mean, how can you not just enjoy watching Max Holloway fight? The guy is phenomenal, one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. Volkanovski has been surging up the rankings. He's won 17 in a row. I remember interviewing Alex Volkanovski like before his second UFC fight, and to see where he is now is absolutely crazy. So this might be a good thing for you, Michael Stack. But I think this is a phenomenal fight. Who do you like in that one?
Man, I'm a big fan of Max Holloway. And I actually trained out in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai, where Alex, I think back when I went out there, he was just getting out there too. And the coaches were really they liked him a lot. They were talking big about him being a champion all the way back then. And that was about 2 years ago, So, and I really like the Hickman brothers out there. They're doing some pretty good stuff down at Tiger Muay Thai. I think they're a really good coaching staff. It's hard because I like Max Holloway, and I do kind of want my acquaintance in that sense with the Tiger Muay Thai guys. I kind of rooting them for them too. But I kind of think Alex has a good chance of taking this one away, just because he's hungry. He's dynamic, and he's a hard hitter, you know what I mean? And not saying that Max can't take a punch, because we've obviously seen with Poirier that Max can take a punch, and Max is a tough son of a gun. Uh, but I'm kind of leaning towards Alex a little bit on this one, but I think it's a toss up still. It's still, you can't really count Max out. Even when Max was like, "I'm gonna fight Khabib," I was on board for Max. You know what I mean? So it's hard to count that guy out.
It's a great fight.
This is a tough one to call. What do you think, man?
I hate making predictions. I hate it. I mean, I am being a pro wrestling fan growing up, I am a true believer of to be the man, you have to beat the man. So until Max loses, I'm always going to side with the champion. You know what I mean? When you're on a run like that, until he's beaten, I can't pick against him. And Alex has as good a chance of anybody, maybe the best chance to beat him of anybody who's fought him in a long time. I mean, the Poirier fight was different because you just saw that Max was just undersized for 155. He was tall, but you could tell like Poirier was just a much bigger, stronger guy. I feel like 45 is a good place for him. I feel like his volume could do some wonders. So I think the interesting thing in this fight is if Volkanovski, can finish the fight, which Max is really tough to put away. Obviously, he's going to win. That's a silly thing to say, but once we get to rounds 4 and 5, that's when things are going to get interesting. Can Volkanovski keep up that same pace? Can he keep it going for 4 or 5? Can he take that volume all 25 minutes? That's the question I have in that fight. And if he can, power to him, and he's going to be in good shape. I think stylistically Volkanovski does have a good shot to win, but until somebody beats Max at 145, I have a hard time picking against him.
I'll tell you what, I do think, training out in Thailand, they train hard out there, and the weather sucks because it's hot. It is so hot. So I don't think his conditioning is going to be as big a factor. We know that Max has a huge tank when it comes to conditioning, but I don't think Alex is going to be lacking in that area at all. I trained out there. When the elevation coming from Colorado to there helped me a lot, but man, that heat is brutal. It's brutal. The amount that you sweat just in one practice, you could wring out your shirt 4 or 5 times and still have a little bit extra. You know what I mean? It's like jumping in a pool, and the body's working really hard to keep yourself cool, and that takes energy. And that takes conditioning. So I think, I don't think his conditioning is going to be as big a factor as you might suspect. You know what I mean? I think just in my opinion, I think I'd favor it just to Alex, just a little bit. But again, you can't count Max out. So we'll see. I'm pretty decent at picking the fights, but when it comes to like these big ones like this, when I have a horse in the game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I kind of have some bias. That's when it gets a little skewed, and I start picking off of more emotion than logic.
I get that, man. Definitely get that. Who knows, man? Like maybe a few years from now, we'll be having this conversation talking about you challenging for the 145-pound title in the UFC. Like then this will all come full circle, and we'll look back at this conversation and be like, holy moly. But in the meantime, keep healing up, my man. Congratulations on another impressive win. Thank you for sharing all this stuff. We look forward to seeing what 2020 is going to look like for you. Before we let you go, let the folks know where they can find and follow you on the web, social media, any shout-outs, anything else you want to get off your chest. The floor is yours.
All right. So on Twitter, it's Michael Stack MMA. Instagram, Michael Stack _MMA. Hey, Mike, thanks again, man. I love doing the interviews with you. You're a great host, so I appreciate it a lot, brother.
Appreciate the kind words, man. All the best to you. Happy holidays, happy new year, and we look forward to seeing what's next for you.
You too.